If, like many others, you've installed your TV right on your wall, but you don't have an outlet behind it, so you have this ugly cord running down with a connection sticking out, it just doesn't look very good. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to turn this into that. And we're going to use an existing outlet. Now that outlet can either be on the same side of this wall or on the other side, which is what I'm going to show you here today. Now the items that we're going to use today, and then I've linked them in the description below, is the Stud Buddy stud finder. This is a magnetic stud finder, no battery required. A Klein tool drywall saw. This is a great hand saw for small cuts like we're going to be doing today. A short piece of 14-2 Romax. Now you could use also 12-2 Romax if that's what your setup requires. 14-2 is sufficient for a 15 amp circuit. A 15 amp duplex commercial grade Leviton outlet. Also this remodel box. Also this fish tape. We'll use that to fish up through the wall so we can pull our new wire down. Then of course the decorative wall plate to go over the duplex outlet, and some 221 Wago clamps. Now you can also use the existing wire nuts. The first step will be to remove the TV and any kind of shelving or accessories that you have in the way. The next step is you need to figure out where you want to put the outlet. Now you definitely don't want to put the outlet right on a stud, and we'll use the Stud Buddy here. Again, link in the description. This is just a simple magnetic stud finder. It's my go-to. And what it does, once you find a stud, it sticks on the wall just like that. So we know our stud is there. Now typically in a modern home or anything fairly new, your studs are going to be about 16 inches apart from center to center of stud. We can double check that, go about 16 inches. There we have another stud. So we know we want to place our new remodel box somewhere in between those two studs and somewhere that's going to be behind the TV. Depending on your model of TV mount, you might be able to put yours right in between the mount. Mine's a little narrow, so I'm going to put my new box right underneath it. That makes sure that it'll still be hidden by most TVs if your TV is at that level. Now that we picked a spot for our new remodel box to go, one trick is you want to turn it over backwards, and we're going to use this as a template for the cutout. One thing that you want to make sure you do is to level out your box though before you make your lines. And then we'll just trace the outside edges of the box. You just want to cut your hole to the actual box shape and not the tab. And when you're done, you should be left with a square outline of where you want your box to go. That's going to be our cut marks. Now, if you're a stickler like me, you can even double check your lines with your level. Now I've got my Klein Tools drywall saw. Again, link in the description. This is a fairly cheap but really nice drywall cutter. For small drywall jobs, this does the trick. Now you definitely want to make sure you don't overcut on this. Under is better than over because obviously you can't add drywall later on, but you can file out or shave off a little bit more drywall if the hole's too small. Okay, then immediately after cutting out your hole, you want to just test fit your box, make sure it's going to fit. And yes, it indeed fits in the hole. So we'll go ahead and temporarily remove it. Now on the opposite side of the wall, I have this outlet. It's actually conveniently in the same section that I want to mount my new outlet on the other side of the wall. The next step is we need to remove this and tie in power up to the new outlet on the other side of the wall. But before we can do that, we need to make sure that we've removed power to this outlet. And as you can see here, we still have power to the outlet. So let's head outside and flip off that circuit breaker. And we've turned off our breaker, and as you can see, there's no power lights. We'll double check both. Still no light. Now, even though that we've double checked with our Klein outlet tester, I always like to stick my non-contact voltage tester. There's several different versions of this. This is the FLIR. I'll also link this in the description. But all this does is test for power without touching anything. If you do have power, the green will turn into orange. It will also vibrate. Pull it all the way out. Another thing you might want to do is just take a picture of each side so you remember how it's wired. But the black hot wires are always on the copper color terminals. Your neutrals are going to be on your silver tabs, and then your ground, of course, is on your green ground lug. So we'll go ahead and remove the outlet and get it out of the way. Now your outlet may only have one white and one black hot wire coming in along with the ground. It just depends on where it's at in the chain of your outlets. Now that the outlet is removed, we can pull out our wires and separate them. We'll be reusing these along with our original outlet when we're ready to reinstall. Now that we've got our outlet out of the way and our wires pulled down, we need to fish up a fish tape up to the top so we can pull down our new wire. In order to do this, we're using a green leaf fiberglass fish tape. So you're gonna insert your fish tape and we're gonna be pushing it up through the existing hole in the old box because we wanna push it up to the new outlet on the other side of the wall. Now it does help if you have two people because you can have one person on the other side looking out for the fish tape. So I'm just gonna feed that fish tape up. And you wanna feed it up about how long your wire is gonna be. Mine's gonna be about 7 foot. So I'll just keep feeding it up. I'm gonna go to the other side of the wall and see if I can fish it out yet. Sometimes your fiberglass fish tapes can curl up in the wall. I wasn't able to pull it all the way up to the top, so I'm gonna try another method. You may have to try this as well. The actual wire is a little bit more rigid and might not curl up inside the wall. And the good thing about this method is your wire is already where it needs to be. Once you're done, you don't have to try to pull it back out. And as you can see, the wire has come through the wall. Now it's time to wire it in on the other side to the outlet. Now we'll cut off the excess. You want about 3 inches at least coming out of your box, 6 inches from where it comes into the box. And we'll go ahead and remove the sheathing. And you want to be careful not to cut the wires when you're removing the rubber coating on the outside. Okay, now if you have 2 services coming into the box already, you're adding a 3rd one. We're gonna need to build a pigtail. So in order to do that, we'll snip off the new wires about the same length as the old wires. Okay, now that we have our wires trimmed, we'll go ahead and strip them. These are the Klein Tools auto strippers. I'll post a link in the description as well for these. Now instead of bending out our J-hooks, what I like to do is cut off the old hooks and we'll just cut some straight strips because we're going to be using Wago 221s to make our pigtail connection. Go ahead and cut those off. Just cut off just enough so you don't shorten the wires too much. Okay, now we're ready to make our pigtails. Now the ground we won't need to use, but we'll use the extra wire from where we snipped them off and we'll strip the ends of that. This is for our pigtail wires. So you have 2 wires and both ends are stripped. And now we have our 3 blacks separated, our 3 whites, and our grounds. This is actually 3 grounds. The other one's crimped in the back here. And now we got our Wago 221s and we'll make our pigtails. We'll push in our 3 existing black wires. You want to be sure to check each connection to make sure they're tight. We'll do the same thing with our white neutrals. Now again, if you have the wire nuts, you can reuse your wire nuts and just add your 4th wire in. I prefer to use the Wagos. Now we'll add in our pigtail. It's going to go to the existing old outlet. So now we have our black hot pigtail, we have our white neutral, and then we have our ground, but we still have 2 grounds sticking out here. So what we're going to need to do is tie the new ground into the old one. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can use a Wago like I did on the other one, or you can use a green wire nut that has the hole in it and poke your ground to the outlet out of that. And now that we've got our Wagos, we've got our 3 pigtails, our black, our white, and our ground. Go ahead and bend our J-hooks. Remember the black hot goes on the brass screw. The white's going to go on the silver color screw. You want to make sure your hooks are in the tightening direction, so clockwise. That way when you tighten them, it pulls the hooks in and doesn't loosen your wires. And finally the ground. It's nice and tight, everything's hooked up good. Now we can accordion in our old wiring, push it back into the back of the box. Very carefully, you want to make sure you don't open up the Wago clamps. Now that the wires are pushed in, I'll give it a double check to make sure nothing's popped loose. Everything looks good. I'll go ahead and fasten down the old outlet back into the wall. Make sure it's straight, give it a check. Careful not to over tighten because you can crack these wall plates pretty easy. Now that the new wiring is tied into the old existing outlet, we can move back to the other room and wire in the new outlet. Okay, we're back on the other side where we're mounting our new outlet. We'll go ahead and push our 14.2 Romex through the box, pull that out. Now you want to make sure you have at least 6 inches of wire coming out from the back of the box out through the opening. We have at least 9, so we're good there. Now we'll tighten down the box. Now these remodel boxes, they're actually designed to clamp on the back of the drywall and they'll pull it tight. So there's no need to screw into the drywall itself. They just tighten and pull a clamp against your drywall. The next step is to remove the sheathing from our Romex. You want to do that inside the box so you have plenty of exposed wires coming out. So just little by little, cut just the outer coating. We can pull off the outer coating. Now we have our black hot, our white neutral, and our exposed ground wire. And now we'll strip off enough of the wires so they can fit J-hooks on the new outlet. Again, we're using our auto strippers from Klein Tools. Link is in the description. These work so well. Now we'll bend J-hooks in our hot, neutral, and ground. And now we're ready to install our new outlet. So we'll start with the ground. Again, you always want to put your hooks on in a clockwise position. That way when you tighten them, they pull and don't loosen. Finally, we'll put on our white neutral. Okay, we'll give everything a good pull check. Everything is tight. So our new outlet is wired in. Next, we'll accordion in the excess wiring. You always want to have extra wiring in your outlet. You don't want it short. And we'll go ahead and tighten down the outlet into the box. Finally, we'll install our outlet cover. And there you have it, folks. The new outlet is installed. The only thing left to do is test it out. So let's head out to the circuit breaker panel and flip that breaker on. And we do have power. We do have the correct 2 lights on, which means it's wired correctly. We'll double check the other outlet. And of course, we want to check the old outlet just to make sure we've rewired it correctly as well. And we have. And now the only thing left to do is hang up our TV and test it out. And there you have it, folks. It's that simple. Just add the outlet behind the TV. Now you don't have those messy cords. And if you found value in this video, please subscribe to our channel here and watch our next video here.